Here we go again. Some meanderings with Rob while I'm doing workflow. Again, it's my second one, and like I mentioned in the first one, I'm just going to workflow and talk about random stuff. I'm not going to explain a lot of what I'm doing because I have videos on that. I just like to talk while I'm workflowing. I'm either listening to a podcast, a lecture on different subjects that I find interesting while I'm doing workflow, or I'm doing this. I thought, well, I can do this, talk to you guys, whoever's interested in this. I will mention that this is one order. I've just resized them down to 8 by 10. I do that on purpose so that the workflow goes a little faster, in case you're wondering. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. So we just had a Fairy Day weekend last weekend, and my wife has been taking the orders all week. She's actually in the studio right now. She's in the other room over there, and she might just randomly show up and start asking me questions. So I may get interrupted. And if she does, I'm just going to keep talking. So yeah, we had a successful Fairy Day. Mentioned before, it's like our 6th one, and we had this time around, I think we had 2 cancellations because the kids were sick, and we either offered them their money back, and Tina said, well, why don't we see if we can get them both to come in the same day for a reshoot, and if we do that, it's worth our while to set up, because setting up is a lot of work. And she managed to do that on a Sunday a couple of weeks from now. So I said, well, okay, if I'm going to set up, I'm going to see if I can get even more bookings. So I ran a Facebook ad just yesterday on the day that I have those 2. I have 2 makeup sessions, I guess. They booked and paid for their fairy session, and they couldn't make it. They had to cancel at the last minute because the kids were sick. People are, the kids have a cold or a flu, it's just like it's the end of the world, right? They're very cautious, which is understandable. So we may end up booking more. I have a feeling we will. We also have Medieval Day booked, and we're getting interest in that. We don't do as many on Medieval Day, but it's a payday. And we also have Ice Fairy Day in 2 days from now. Right now it's Friday afternoon. And tomorrow I have a wedding. It's going to be cold too. It might even snow. Brr. My last wedding of the year. Tina's officiating, and I am taking a photography. It's our last wedding. We do a lot of pop-up weddings. It's kind of like a pop-up wedding. We go there as a team, 3 hours. Tina marries them. I do the photography, and I'm out of there. I like that. I really like that, as opposed to the old school go all day weddings, which I know are still a thing, but yeah, I've done so many of them. Maybe I'm getting old. I don't know. I just really like the small pop-up weddings. I've talked about this before on certain masterminds. Tina and I started the pop-up experience. If you can go check it out at pinkdoorweddings.com. That's the company we started. Pink Door Weddings, and it's only 3-4 years old. We started in this summer of 2019, and our first pop-up event was we did 5 weddings in one day. Crazy. And our second pop-up event that same year, we did 4 weddings in one day. We thought 5 is too many. Let's go down to 4. And now we're like 3 is probably better with a 3-hour gap in between them. The way a pop-up wedding works typically, it could be anything. It could be if you wanted to get married in your backyard and you wanted us to come and marry you guys, it's a small wedding. We do the officiating, we legally marry you, do the photography, bada boom. We'll even help it sit on chairs and all that. But you can do that, or get married at a cottage, get married in. We've done 2 weddings where they got married in the forest. That's what they wanted. I said, yeah, we can do that. And Oh, I just hit the wrong action 2 times in a row here. That's overkill. And we've done them at cottages, out in the bush, forest, or sometimes we'll rent out a small chapel. Go to pinkdoorweddings.com, you'll see what that's all about. So to me, that is wedding photography evolved just the way these fairies are. Child portraiture evolved. I've said that many, many times. And I was at a meeting this morning, and a lady that I know, she knew I was a photographer, but I don't know, she didn't know to what extent. And she asked me, she said, "Rob, are you ever going to retire?" And I said, "No." The idea of retiring it horrifies me. So no to that. That's a hard pass. And she said, "Yeah, I guess you have a fun job." She works as a social worker in the prison system, so she's working with prisoners all day. Smart lady, very personable, and fun to talk to. But she's probably I didn't ask her, but she's probably ready to retire. She's probably got a good government pension. I do not, but that's okay. I like taking pictures. I don't know about you guys, but it's the kind of thing, you don't lose a lot of enthusiasm for. So that's a good thing. One thing I do love too is a stand-up comic, and one guy I've been following for years now. His name is Andrew Schultz. He's hilarious, and I noticed he had a special come out about 6 months ago. And the idea, I know the background. I heard him on a podcast, and he said that I think it was through Netflix or some large streaming service. They had a deal going, and they told him he had to take off about 15 minutes of his content because it was potentially too offensive. And he said, "Well, no, can I buy it back?" So he bought the rights to his own show. It was probably the smartest thing he ever could have done. And Louis C.K. does the same thing, because Louis got kind of canceled, And so anyways, this Andrew Schultz guy launched it on a private server, and he ran it live, and then twice he ran it live, and he charged like $15, and he said he made more money. He never made that much money in his life. And then he put it on YouTube. So my wife and I watched it a few weeks ago. The guy is hilarious. Andrew Schultz, I forget the title of it, but you'll find it. The guy's an amazing comedian. So anyways, Jordan Peterson interviewed him yesterday, and I'm about 90% done that interview, and I thought I'd take a break and talk to you guys. Talk about Jordan Peterson for a minute. I think Jordan Peterson's a genius. He's going to go down in history as one of the great thinkers of our modern times. I'm going to put him up there with Fyodor Dostoevsky and Nietzsche and Carl Jung. You may not agree with me on that one, but I think Joe Rogan said this about Jordan Peterson, that he's the most misrepresented person he knows. And I'll tell you why that is. That is because I was talking to somebody last year about Jordan Peterson, and they sent me an article from a major newspaper, sort of like this journalist lady was sort of like hit piecing Jordan. I'm like, well, man, I'm thinking to myself, like, don't you think for yourself, or do you have to run everything through what a journalist says? Because it's nothing more than a hit piece. I mean, anybody can write anything negative about anybody. And if you don't like Jordan Peterson, I mean, really, I can summarize everything Jordan Peterson stands for in 2 words: responsibility and meaning, or the search thereof. He's looking for and defining the search for meaning and the value of responsibility. That's why a lot of younger people, particularly a lot of young men, are really attracted to him. Now, I heard of Jordan Peterson from my nephew, who at the time was about 36. But actually it was his wife who loved Jordan Peterson. His wife, actually, she's First Nations, Native Canadian, right off the reserve. Smart girl. She loves Jordan Peterson, and she calls out a lot of the BS and a lot of the woke culture nonsense that goes on. It's kind of refreshing to see that in these young people. So they sent me the link when 4 or 5 years ago, the first time Joe Rogan interviewed Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson has been on Joe Rogan about 4 or 5 times now. You cannot find the first interview on YouTube. It's all been taken down, because Joe Rogan's now on Spotify. But if you look around, you'll find it. I urge you to look for it. It's a really good interview. It's so good I've listened to it like 3 times. Hey, look at these 3 girls here, eh? These are twins, I believe. Siblings. One of the things when I'm posing girls like this, I often ask them I said, you guys don't fight, right? I'm just joking, right? It's funny to see their response. It's always kind of cute. Most of the time they're like, oh yeah, we do. We fight. Or sometimes it's like, oh, just a little bit, sometimes. But it catches them off guard, and it's funny to see their reaction. Because siblings, especially girls, that's what they do. I know. I have 4 sisters. I see it with my own eyes. Anyways, Jordan Peterson is one of my all-time favorites. When I turned 60, which was 4 years ago, my wife bought me the book. My wife and my daughter bought me the book, 12 Rules. And I thought, I'm not really going to like this. It's just more self-help. I've heard it all, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I thought. And I started reading it. And I started marking the pages. You ever like a book so much you start marking the pages and making notes and underlining? So I started doing that. And when I like a book a lot, which I do with many books, I'll take all the stuff I underline and I'll put it in a separate PDF so I can reference just the good stuff. And I did that with that book. That and many, many books that I've done over the years, I put them all in the No BS Photo Success Forum for people to access. And that year I turned 60. Besides I really liking that book, which I loved, another one of my birthday presents was to go see Jordan live in Toronto, which we did. Went to see one of his lectures. It was sold out. It was really cool, There's a buzz in the air when people go to this. So don't listen to anything the press is saying. And in front of us, when we were waiting for the lecture to start, there was a couple in front of us. They were a young couple. I started talking to them. I was like, oh, where are you guys from? Well, they were in from Buffalo. So they were Americans driving in all the way from Buffalo. Just a young couple. Like she was like 28 and he was like 31. And, young people resonate with Jordan Peterson. So don't listen to what the naysayers are saying. I highly, highly, highly encourage you to listen to what he's saying. I think he's going to go down in history as one of the greatest intellects of all time. And I'm sure Dostoevsky and Nietzsche and Freud and Jung and all them, they probably got a lot of flack from the media too. We just don't know about it much, and we just look at what they did and their accomplishments and how wonderful they were. If you don't know who Fyodor Dostoevsky is, go on Wikipedia and check it out. Or look for quotes by Fyodor, Fyodor Dostoevsky. I don't know the spelling, but just start searching. It'll show up. All right. So comedy, yeah, I love comedy. I love stand-up. It's just good for the soul. When I was much younger, in the 80s, back in the 80s, they used to bring in Yuck Yucks used to bring in comedy shows. I used to go to them all the time, and they stopped for a while, but they've started again. So I went to the last one last month, and I find it. I don't know. Well, who doesn't love? If you want to really do a deep dive into why comedy works, go to Jordan Peterson's YouTube channel. He just interviewed, like I said, Andrew Schultz. And they do a really good discussion and deep dive, and you can get some insights as to the psychology behind humor. It's quite good. It's quite fascinating. I think I'm almost done here. I hear my wife just slammed the front door closed, and she's going to be coming back here in a minute. It's okay. I hope you guys can follow this workflow. Okay, what else I want to talk about? It's Ice Fairy Day here tomorrow. I think I mentioned that. We don't make as many bookings on Ice Fairy Day or on Medieval Day, but we, it's still a payday. We make money. The big payoff has been these fairies, always. And part of my action, my images are half sepia, and I see photographers deviate from that. And I'm telling you, this is the way to go. Half sepia is the way to go. It's more than that. It's because you don't see what I'm doing unless you've seen my other workflow videos. But the part of the workflow is to make the image half sepia, so the color is muted a little bit. It just looks painterly. Why would you want to change that? Some photographers give their clients the option. That is a big mistake. We've never in a million years, thousands of fairies I've done, no one's ever said to us, well, can I get that not half sepia, or can I get that, it's just never happened. So they love it the way it is. It sells. So we sell albums, we sell wall portraits, reprints, we sell the I'm going to call it the souvenir box, but these matted prints in a box that Album Epoca creates. They're quite nice, actually. We sell those. And looks good. I mean, it looks like a painting. Don't you agree? These look like a painting. That combined with the experience, where the parents almost universally, unanimously, thoroughly enjoy, and the kids enjoy it too. And that's a large part of what this is all about. You have to bring the experience in, and it's got to be done right. So more on that later. So what else I want to talk about? I think that's it. Who's your favorite comedian? Tell me. Okay, I have a niece who went to Second City in Toronto, did all the programs, lots of improv. Second City is well-known. If you're familiar with Canadian humor, Second City TV was a long-time running show, very similar in many ways to Saturday Night Live. A lot of players on Saturday Night Live got their start at Second City, both in Toronto and in Chicago. And, Martin Short and guys like that. The guy on Wayne's World, what's his name? That guy. Anyways, so my niece took the whole program. She always wanted to be a stand-up comedian, but she got distracted, and she's, especially since COVID, she's doing other stuff now. But I asked, she doesn't like Louis C.K. Louis C.K. is my favorite. I think he's a genius, and I don't know, maybe she doesn't like him because he got canceled for jerking off in a flower pot. So, but he's funny, man. I mean, he is funny. So who's your favorite? If I was to pick two more comedians, I'd say Joe Rogan, Bill Burr, and then Joe Rogan. There's many others, but sadly, many people would say Bill Cosby is one of the greats, but he freaking ruined it for himself, didn't he? It's really too bad. I saw him live twice. I laughed so hard I was crying. It's kind of tragic that he's no longer relevant. All right, so I'm just opening up. Oh, look at the lighting on that. Okay, this little girl, I think she's very young, and big, beautiful head of hair. Look at those eyes. Yeah, she's pretty young. See, she's handing Tina. I asked her to hand Tina the ball. And here she's putting a froggy inside the lantern. So when they're very young like that, I try and get these shots on the fly. So what I'm going to do I'm just going to keep going here. Yeah, so sales are brisk, very, very consistent. I think we had one lady who only took her 8x10, which is rare. Rare. And but the sales are usually pretty steady, pretty reliable. The average is good. Okay, I'm gonna close soon, but I just want to work a few of these for you. I want to show you what I would do given this lighting. So see, she's too close to the edge of the pond right here. Normally they're over on this side. The lighting's a little bit particular. That's okay. I just get what I get. Oh, see, as soon as I did that, the shadows opened up. See that? Now I can do a couple things. I can now go back into raw, filter, and I can open up the shadows more. See that? So I'm going to do that. I only opened up the shadows. And then I have an action. It's an adjustment layer. Crank up the opacity. And I'm going to lighten it up. I'm going to lighten her arm just a bit too. Tina's always giving me shit on the arms. Too dark. So there we go. I'm lightening this up quite a bit just so there's more, obviously more focus on her. Sometimes people get weird, you know, they like, well, there's a shadow there. Well, yeah, it's called Rembrandt lighting. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. So see the ripple? That was in the action. So I forgot to do this. Go to the history brush and create ripples. Again, not gonna explain a whole lot, but you get the idea. I'm just gonna finish this one off and then I gotta go talk to my wife. It's almost 5 o'clock. I gotta go home soon, have supper. I've been working all day on orders. We're very, very fast to get the orders sold and off to the lab, so they're back in plenty of time. It's Christmas time, you know. We're what, November 11th today? It's Remembrance Day in Canada. Is it Veterans Day in the US? My grandfather was an American, born in 1896 in Michigan. Came up to Ontario, Canada. I met my grandmother, married her, and World War I broke out. I think the story goes he applied for the Canadian Army, but he got rejected. I don't know why. So he said, okay, well, I'll just go down to Michigan, and he went to Michigan and he signed up with the American Army. He went across and did his thing. I don't know many details. I do remember growing up, though, that there was these large panorama pictures from, you know, they used to do these portraits in my grandmother and grandfather's house. I wish the hell I knew where those pictures were, because what a commemoration of my grandfather's life. And his oldest son, my Uncle Fred, fought in World War II. He was in the Navy in a frigate that was part of the protecting the convoys that were going across the North Atlantic. And also he did what's called the Murmansk run. Murmansk is in northern Russia. So it would have been cold. It would have been really, really cold, and lots of U-boats. So the frigate was there with the depth charges and what have you, and they would chase down, you know, U-boats. She's back. I'm just recording a video. I'm finished. I'm out of here. Okay, guys, thanks.